Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. It's that time of the week once again for the weekly challenges to go ahead and refresh. We are once again back on track with one of the better reward weeks this week. We do have the 6-star roulette ticket reward, which can award you anything from invitational cars to some of the more expensive vehicles in game, and of course a ton of credits. The events this week aren't too bad. You're looking at 40 to 50 minutes maximum to get all of these done and dusted. However, before we get into the video itself, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and turn those notifications on so you don't miss an upload. Anyway, let's have a look at the overview for this week. This is September week 3, which will end on the 26th of September 2024 at midnight. So having a look at the events for this week, we start off at Kyoto Driving Park. That is going to be for the European Sunday Cup 400. That is a 2-lap sprint. We then move over to Willow Springs International Raceway on the streets of Willow Springs for the lightweight K Cup, of course for the Japanese K cars, and in terms of this one it is a 400 pp limit. Then we have the returning special event for the BAC Mono 1 make, this time at Dragon Trail Seaside. Then we head over to the Red Bull Ring for the Neo Classic competition, one of my favourite events in the entire game. And then finally, once again, we have the World Rally Challenge, this time at Eiger Nordswand Reverse. In terms of the rewards for this week, for completing one event, it's 100,000 credits. For completing 3 events is 200,000 credits. And of course, for completing all 5 events, we get the famed 6-star roulette ticket reward. That 6-star can yield anything from a ton of credits to some of the rarest cars in game, and is definitely worth your time to take and get for around about 40 to 50 minutes of your time. So let's head over to event number 1 for this week, which is of course the European Sunday Cup 400 at Kyoto Driving Park. This is a 2-lap sprint, so we're not worrying about fuel and tyres, and of course is aimed at European cars in the region of 400 pp, so some of the slower cars in game. Although it's a 400 recommendation, it isn't set in stone, so my choice this week was of course the Ferrari Dino, which you are seeing on screen now. Let's head over and kickstart this event. Now in terms of the event itself, with it only being a 2-lap sprint, it's going to be over and done with fairly quite quickly. Again, if you want to abuse that PP limit, I believe you can use something like the Ferrari VGT here, which will get this event done and dusted in absolutely no time. But as always, I like to stick it on the hardest difficulty and try and keep in the range of the limit or the PP recommendation, which is available for each event. Now in terms of the AI, there's not many of them. There is 7 of them on grid, of course 8 cars if you include yourself. Now the majority of them are fairly quite spread out, so you're going to be picking off maybe one to the next. You might end up like I did here, having a bit of side-by-sides in a tiny little group, but apart from that it's just kind of going one to the next until you get your way to the front of the grid. Now whilst the majority of the AI are fairly quite slow and will be pretty off the pace and really easy to beat, I did take note that the lead car for me, which was the 208 GTI, was way ahead of the rest of the pack and definitely much quicker than the rest of them as well. If you do have this car in your race, just be aware if you're trying to run it on the hardest difficulty and match the rating, that this one may give you a little bit of trouble. But again, everything can be solved without breaking the AI opponents in GT7, which is exactly what we did here. In the end, we did manage to pull out a couple of seconds lead and got this event done and dusted in no time at all. That is going to give us tick number 1 of the week. In terms of the payout with the clean race bonus, it's 37,500 and of course 100k on top of that for completing the first event of the 5. So let's move into event number 2. This is of course going to be the lightweight K Cup, this time over at Willow Springs International Raceway on the streets of Willow Springs. One of the more perfect track selections for this type of car. Of course the cars here are very small, and we do actually have a PP limit in place, which is 400. Now I went for the Honda S660, and in terms of the car itself, I do actually have the sort of bike sport engine swap, which I believe comes from the Honda 2 and 4. It is possible to run that under 400 pp. It just requires a lot of ballast and a lot of the standard parts, and of course, as you see in here, comfort tyres. Now, because these are relatively slow cars overall, it was an absolute breeze to get this event done with the engine swap. Again, in terms of your car choice, it will differ depending on what you pick. You can pick any of the K cars in game, so the likes of the Honda Beat, the Daihatsus, the Suzuki Cappuccinos, so feel free to play around with them. Honestly, the difficulty of the event will just depend on your car choice. Something like the Daihatsu Copen is much slower than something like the Honda Beat at 400 pp. So just bear that in mind, but honestly, any of these K cars should have the ability to win. Your main issue is actually going to be working your way through the grid. I believe you don't start directly at the back, but there's still a lot of traffic on a very narrow and very tight layout, so just be aware of them. Try and pick them off one by one. You might end up running into a few built up groups, so just be aware if that does happen that the AI will take no prisoners and probably attempt to run you wide as they start battling with each other. In terms of the event though, it is pretty easy as long as you've got something quite quirky at 400 pp in the K car category. That is tick number 2 of the week, 30,000 credits without the clean race bonus. I believe I ran wide and did lose it. It's pretty easy to lose that here, but overall not a bad event at all. Job done. Let's move into event number 3 of the week, which is of course the return of the BAC Mono 1 make, this time at Dragon Trail Seaside, of course home to the dreaded Death Chicane. So this is going to be in line with the typical 1 make special events, which is going to be a 5-lap sprint, so we're not worrying about the likes of tyres or fuel usage. Of course, the car of choice for this one will need to be the BAC Mono, however there is no PP limit in place. But if you want to get the most out of this event, I do recommend just sticking the car on Sports Softs, stick it on the highest difficulty and keep the car standard apart from that slight change. You will probably have a massive blast here. Now we're not going to start at the back of the grid for this one, we're going to start off in 12th place. There is 16 cars on the grid including yourself. The main part you want to be aware of is of course the Death Chicane itself. It can be a major pain here, and I did notice that the AI were ridiculously inconsistent and slow through there, really braking hard on the exit, so just be prepared with that, as there is a good chance you'll just slam into the back of them. Again, as long as you take note there, the rest of the track is quite wide open and quite easy to get those overtakes done. Again, as mentioned, if you keep your car competitive in line with the AI, you'll probably have a great time just blasting your way through, really picking those moments to get those overtakes done. Again, just take that special care at the Death Chicane. You can see right there in that clip just how inconsistent they are on the exit. For some reason they'll blast through and then get really heavy on the brakes. It will lose you a ton of momentum as well, as more than likely there won't be enough room to just throw the car up the inside without clattering into them and completely ruining that clean race bonus. So again, just pick them off one by one. In terms of their cars, they are not running upgrades, I don't believe, but they are definitely very consistent around the rest of the track, of course apart from that Death Chicane. Now we even got ourselves nearly into lap 5 by the time I did eventually take the lead. Again, just outbraking the AI in GT7 is the best way to start building up those gaps. In terms of the event itself, we took a 4-second lead in the end, managed to get tick number 3 of the week, and that is the special event done and dusted. Now in terms of the event itself, with the clean race bonus, it's a little bit less than usual, 97,500 credits. We also get our daily driving marathon, which is a 4-star roulette ticket, and of course for completing 3 events it's 200,000 credits. So time to head to event number 4. It's quite in line with what we saw last week. Both of the final events do include fuel and tyre usage. One of my personal favourite competitions in the game is the Neo Classic competition. This is a range of races for pre-1999 race cars, so you'll see a massive varied grid, this time at the Red Bull Ring. I went for the Mercedes CLK here. This is a car that I've not really used too much since update 1.49. It does run in Group 2, but is customizable enough to run at the PP limit, which is of course 800 here. Now in terms of the car selection, you can choose anything from the 787B, the likes of the CLK, and of course some of the more group cars like the Group 3 GT500s, and of course Group Bs if you really want to. But you'll probably have to run in the high-end groups to really have a chance of taking the win here. It's a massively varied grid, and you'll start seeing that at the beginning. It's probably quite easy to start picking off opponents. Some of the older cars in game will run in the likes of Group B and Group 3, but will end up dropping back fairly quickly. Even myself during this event, I ran Fuel Mix 6 for the entirety of it. did end up dropping back and was trying to take advantage by doing a 0 pit stop race. I do recommend keeping your eye on the weather. If you start seeing it getting quite hazy or quite grey, watch the weather radar, as I believe there is the potential to have rain on this event. Now, in terms of the front running AI, the majority of them are going to be Group C Le Mans race cars. Of course, Group 1 cars, they are very, very quick. However, I did notice towards the end of the event there was a bit of a glitch with them. So take note of the lead car pitting now. This is one of the Group 1 cars. It's going to pit in at the end of lap 8. I believe it was the Jaguar Group C. It's then going to end up pitting once again a lap later. So it lost a bunch of time and then ended up pitting in again 2 laps in a row. It's just quite bizarre how the AI works here. So don't sweat it too much. If you're on lap 7, lap 8 and you sat around about 5th or 6th place, you'll make that time up, as all of the AI seems to box in on lap 9 and lap 10. So the best way to complete this event is do a 0 stop race, conserve your fuel, and then just get all the way to the end without pitting. That is the best possible way to get this done without having to bother yourself with a pit stop and push really hard through the entire race. That's tick number 4 of the week, 154k without the clean race bonus. Not too bad for an event that takes around about 12 to 13 minutes to complete. That's going to move us into the final event of this week, which is of course the returning World Rally Challenge, once again at Eiger Nordswand Reverse. I believe this may be like the 2nd or 3rd time we've seen this event ever since update 1.49. As mentioned prior, tyres and fuel is on, and my car choice for this one was of course the Subaru Impreza, probably one of my favourite Group B cars in the entire game. Now, in terms of the race itself, there isn't that many AI here. It's quite a short layout. It's going to be a 12 lap race, so there's going to be 11 competitors on track, but they are massively spread out to a ridiculous margin. That first place will almost be kind of halfway around the lap by the time you actually start the event. And in terms of the event itself, it's set up in a really poor way. So the tyre use and the fuel usage is bumped right up, so you'll be shredding through the tyres. Now this is where I run into a really awkward situation. Now usually I will run the racing mediums to make myself competitive. You will have to run upgrades here, by the way. So again, just play around with those to get the fastest possible build. Now in usual circumstances I run the racing mediums, but I chose to run the racing hards. Now the problems with the mediums, they get shredded very quickly before your ideal pit stop and almost force you into doing a double stop, which is not what you want to do. However, the racing hards are just far too slow, so I was way off the pace for this run. Again, we only really need to aim to get in that top 3 to actually get the tick for the week, and having already got the gold tick on this event, I really wasn't too worried about that. So I do recommend that you'll have to take the mediums and just deal with massively shredded tyres as you drag the car to the end of lap, or sorry, should I say the start of lap 7 with this circuit, how it's laid out, and then box in and get the fresh tyres on. Honestly, the hards here just don't work that well at all on the higher difficulties. The AI is far too consistent and quick round here, and they also get such a head start that it's almost impossible to close them down. Now again, you're going to do the majority of your overtaking probably as the AI pit. Like, there's a bunch of different strategies here, so it's really confusing how it works. Some of the cars are on the late strategies, so they will pit right towards the end, which I don't understand how they're making their fuel go that high, considering even when we run in fuel mix 6, we're pretty much out of a tank of fuel by the time we get to the start of lap 8. They're doing an extra 2 laps, and they also have insane pace on pretty much any tyre. It's a really weird event that's definitely set up to be against the player. In the end, we did only manage P2, which is a massive shame, but it is what it is. It still gets us the 5th tick of the week, and of course awards us that 6-star roulette ticket. So basically, definitely be prepared to throw everything at that final event. So let's open up our rewards for this week. We have our 4-star roulette ticket reward. Now typically I do get pretty bad rewards here, but as you can see, this is a car only 4-star, and there's even the Lamborghini Veneno on here. However, we do end up with the Ferrari VGT, which is definitely one of the better ones in game, so I'm very happy with that. This is a pretty handy car as well. If you haven't got it, I would recommend picking it up. We're then going to add 100k to the account, And of course, the next one is going to be for free events, which is 200,000 credits. And then finally, after adding this one, we're going to head over to that famed 6-star roulette ticket reward. Now, this will grant you one of the better prizes in game. It can be upwards of 1,000,000 credits, which is fantastic if you're building them up, or some of the rarer cars in game. As you can see, we do have the 918 on there as well, and also the Alpine VGT. Now, unfortunately, we're going to end up with the Alpine here. I would have much rather had that 918 Porsche, but again, fair enough, it's 1,000,000 credits worth of vehicle. You can definitely get some good rewards off this ticket. Anyway, don't forget to let me know what rewards you got on your 6-star this week. A massive thank you to all of my channel members who help support the channel between uploads. I also want to give a big thank you to you guys who tune in every day to this channel. I hope you have a fantastic start to your weekend. Take care, guys. Peace.